Okay, guys, so here it goes. Today, in the chapter 2, we're going to talk about the economic cycle and business economics, types of ownership, types of companies, and types of ownerships. The economic cycle contains 5 areas. First, we have the companies. The companies provides goods that people can buy. Then we have the households. The households are responsible for caring for themselves, for buying groceries, for buying insurance, for buying cars, for buying all kinds of different things that are necessary in order to keep a house going. Then we have banks. Banks are responsible for financing a lot of the action that take place in companies, for financing mortgages, for homeowners, for financing consumption, for financing all sorts of things. Then we have public institutions. Public institutions are responsible for maintaining the laws and regulations that makes it possible to run a company, to buy a house, to secure the people in the state. They're responsible for making everything from schools to kindergartens to public universities to make sure that there are actually educated people that can work in these companies after so that the companies can actually maintain the competitive possibilities that they have. Then there's the outside of the DK. That's a lot of the export that we have in Denmark, of course, goes to Germany, to America, to UK, to China. These are, of course, important partners, and this is, of course, also something that has a large input on Danish economy. For a fact, actually, if there is a recession in, for example, Germany, most likely it will also happen to Denmark because we're so closely linked. If you see the economic cycle, you have the companies here, public institutions, households, and the outside DK here. And we see export goods, import goods, services, goods going from the companies to the public, services that goes from the public to households, um, people, employees goes from households to the public. Goods and services goes from companies to households. Uh, People in work goes from the households to the companies. So there's a connection between all of them. If you look at the money flow, we have the export income going from abroad to the company. If, for example, we have Danish crown who sells bacon to the UK, that will take place money from abroad to the company. Then the company, of course, also will probably buy a service or something in abroad. Then we have from the bank. The bank provides a loan to the company, and then they get part of the interest back. Then we have the banks provides a loan to the company, to the household, then they get part of the savings back. Import expenses from the household to abroad. Salary from the public, the household. Tax and registration fees goes from households to the public, to the public institutions. Taxes and registration fees also goes from companies to the public. The public also buys goods from the companies. You must contain that. So there's a connection from the money flow goes all over the company in that way. The economic cycle tasks We'll talk about that later. Types of companies now. We have a production company. Company that produce goods to other companies. Trading companies. Companies that resell goods unaltered. But then there's wholesale. Companies that sell to other companies, examples. Then we have retails. Companies that sell to consumers, example. Service companies. Companies that produce and sell services instead of products, examples. Chain of distribution. The farm, the factory, the wholesaler, and the supermarket. Production company, supplier, production, and customers. Trading companies, supplier, warehouse, shop, customers. Service companies, most public services consist of service companies, hospitals, schools, etc. Service companies produce and sell services instead of products. Most of the public sector consists of service companies. Hairdressers, dentists, lawyers, banks, etc. are also examples of it. Cleaning companies is also an example of it. The service of such companies cannot be produced and stored. Service companies need sufficient capacity to meet customers' requirements at the right time. That means that you can't put the service in a warehouse, for example. You need to be able to offer the correct amount of man hour at the correct time. So that can actually be a bit more complex than selling Coca-Cola in a retail store. Example of companies. Then we have some tasks here that we will talk about in companies. Company functions, suppliers, purchasing, finance function, sales function, customers. Production of same as for trading companies, and more functions connected with production. Company ownerships. We have different types of ownership. Sole proprietorship, that's if you're one person that owns a company. Partnerships, public limited company, private limited company. Then there's other forms. For example, the EVS, private limited companies, public limited companies.